Texas football takes on West Virginia in Morgantown. Soccer also faces the Mountaineers, and Tom Herman previews the OU game.
States in general don't get along very well. I think it's cool that it's always on our soil. It makes it one of, if not the best, games in college football.
Good evening and welcome to College Press Box. Thank you for joining us on your Monday evening. I'm your host, Madison Hager, joined by Nick Kucholtz. We have a packed show for you tonight. Let's start out with Texas football.
It was a big game for Texas on Saturday. The 11th ranked Longhorns headed in this weekend against the West Virginia Mountaineers, looking to move to 2-0 in Big 12 play. Let's head to Morgantown for the highlights. Just a minute and a half into this one, and West Virginia would strike first. Former OU quarterback Austin Kendall finds Sam James the incredible catch for the 44-yard score. The Mountaineers go up 7 early. Later in the first, Kendall back to throw again, but it's picked off. First career interception for Dele Adeoye. He takes it inside the Westlaw 30. Texas would go on to score and tie things up at 7. Early in the second quarter, Kendall keeps it himself, fakes everybody out and gallops in for the 1-yard score. Westlaw retakes the lead. A few minutes later, Ellinger in shotgun, but it's senior John Burt who hauls in the 13-yard touchdown catch. We're all tied up at 14. Just a few minutes before halftime, Sam back to throw, but decides to keep it himself. Splits through the Mountaineer defense for the 13-yard touchdown and gives the Horns their first lead of the ballgame. Into the second half we go. Kendall throws deep this time, again looking for Sam James once more. Deshaun Jamison, get you some, baby. The play of the game, incredible INT from the sophomore. And into the fourth we go, Texas up 11. Ellinger rolls right, throws to Sam Cosmi. Go, big fella, go! The 300-pounder rumbles and tumbles into the end zone. Everything going right for the Burnt Orange. 3 minutes to go, Texas still up big, 3rd and 3. Sam keeps it and nothing but pay dirt in front of him. A 23-yard keeper to put the nail in the coffin. Texas wins this one 42-31.
Joining us in the studio tonight is football analyst Thomas Fitch. Thanks for coming back on. With Texas beating West Virginia on the road in Morgantown, what did Texas prove this week and what are their greatest strengths?
Well, the thing they proved this week is the fact that they can win a trap game. I know some said it's a trap game, some said it didn't. Regardless, it's the week before OU and it's on the road. That's tough to focus in on. The team did that and they got the win. They also proved they have depth. We talked about before this week all the players they were going to be without Jalen Green, Caden Stearns, Josh Thompson, and then you have guys like Deshaun Jamison. You have guys like Anthony Cook coming in, stepping in, making big plays. As far as what I'm most impressed by this far in the season, it's got to be the O-line. We saw Sam Cosmi run that ball in, but aside from Cosmi's athleticism, running game is averaging 4.6 yards per carry. That's doing a huge part to the offensive line, and they're just giving up 2 sacks per game. They gave up 5 to LSU, so in the last 3 games, 1.3 sacks per game. Offensive line doing everything for Texas right now.
For sure. And with Texas taking on OU this weekend in the Red River rivalry, what do you think that they need to do this week to prep?
The biggest thing that they need to watch out for is Jalen Hurts running the ball. You look at the comparison to this team in Oklahoma State, pretty similar teams, good run game, good receivers, good quarterback. Texas shut down the receivers against Oklahoma State. They shut down Chuba Hubbard as much as they could. They've done good against the run game. They held West Virginia to under 100 yards last week, but where they struggled, Spencer Sanders against Texas, 18 carries, 118 yards, and a touchdown. They're going to have to limit Jalen Hurts if they want to have a chance in this game. Offensively, the key is get the running game started early. Against West Virginia, it was a sluggish first half because the run game essentially non-existent. Go to the second half, Roschon Johnson starts running the ball well, the whole offense opens up. They got to do that. Run early, run often, run successfully, and they'll have a chance in this game.
And with Texas being ranked number 11 for the 4th consecutive week, do you think that they deserve this ranking, and where do you see the rest of the season going?
You know, I've talked about rankings before on this show. I have the same opinion right now. It's week 6. Rankings don't matter all that much at this point in the season. Now, do I think that Texas is a better team than Penn State? Sure. But, look, Penn State's undefeated. If voters are going to say they're undefeated, Texas isn't, we're going to put them ahead of them for the time being, I think that's a fair assessment. I also think the voters are saying, we're going to wait till after the Texas OU game and evaluate Texas after they've played a top 10 team to see if they belong. If they beat OU, they show, yeah, they belong in the top 10. If they don't, they show they don't. And so I think it's that easy. I think the voters are waiting. But as far as the end of the season is concerned, Texas needs this win because there's not a lot of depth. And if they want to boost their strength of schedule, they got to get this win.
For sure. Thanks, Thomas. When we come back, we will head to Mike A. Myers Stadium to see how Texas soccer played against West Virginia. Stick around. Good evening and welcome back into College Press Box. Soccer took on West Virginia and Austin this past Sunday. Let's head over to Mike A. Myers Stadium for the highlights. The Mountaineers headed down to Austin for this matchup. To start it off, Sydney Nobles takes a shot on goal, but it is blocked by Riley Foster. Not so fast, West Virginia then takes a shot on goal, but Nicole Curry snags it. The score is 0-0 after the first. Going into the second half, Jessica Lisi surges the ball towards goal, and Enzi Broussard puts it in. West Virginia is up 1-0. But Texas would not let West Virginia stay up as Casey Smith gets the ball and Sydney Billups heads it in, and the score is now 1-0. And now time for extra time. Addison Clark seals the deal, and West Virginia takes the ball into the goal for West Virginia. Score is 2-1 at the end.
We are now joined by our soccer analyst, Ted Kim. Ted, a big win for Texas on Thursday against TCU, but as we know, the Mountaineers put an end to the Texas 4-game winning streak yesterday. What happened to Texas on Sunday afternoon?
Well, Nick, while the Longhorns were fantastic at their defense, West Virginia had a quicker response time, and they made it a lot harder for the Longhorns to pick back up and respond. Texas had a hard time converting to offense when given the opportunities to do so, outshooting UT 19-4 and holding on to a 9-2 advantage on corner kicks in regulation. The Mountaineers had the higher ground, especially in the second half when they became far more aggressive, weakening Texas's defense. West Virginia registered 26 total shots, and 10 of them were on goal. But Texas redshirt junior goalkeeper Nicole Curry responded back with 8 amazing saves. The Longhorns forced 2 overtimes, but to end it all off, Mountaineer sophomore Addison Clark hit the game-winning goal in the 103rd minute mark, leaving Texas 2-1 on Sunday's matchup.
It was a crazy finish at Mike A. Myers.
Yeah.
Looking forward, Texas has to get some momentum back. What can this team do to get better? How can they improve?
Well, for one thing, Nick, I think Texas needs to have a better response time, but overall, they did an excellent job. They did a splendid job. After the game, junior midfielder Haley Berg said, "Our biggest focus is making sure we stay together as a team, and we don't start pointing fingers." I agree 100% on that. And they still hold #1 in the Big 12 Conference. And man, oh man, although it was a home game loss, it was quite the nail-biter seeing West Virginia getting very close to the goal. And all I can say is that goalkeeper Nicole Curry has eyes of a hawk. And she should be honored tonight for amazing defensive skills.
Well, there's 5 regular season games remaining. 3 of those are at home for the Horns. Ted, how do you see this season finishing for the Texas Longhorns?
I think Texas has faced a lot of trial and errors, but hasn't every sports team had, Nick? And I think Texas soccer will do just fine. Going up against ranked 25 Oklahoma State this Friday will be a tough and rigorous matchup, and I can't wait to see how it turns out. Looking at the remainder of this season, in my opinion, I believe Iowa State and Oklahoma will be an easy win, while Texas Tech and Baylor are 2 games I recommend keeping an eye for. With a record of 10 wins and only losing 1, Texas Tech scares me, Nick. The Raiders scare me.
Well, we'll see. It should be an exciting finish to the season for Texas, to say the least. Ted, thanks so much for coming on, my man. When we come back, we'll be joined by Zach Leff and Clark Dalton. They'll take us beyond the 40 acres on this week's edition of Unhooked. Stay with us.
Welcome back to College Press Box, and thank you again for joining us on this Monday night. Clark and Zach will now bring us into the wild world of fantasy football.
Thank you, Madison. I hope everyone is doing well. Each fall, millions of Americans compete in the great sport known as fantasy football. Whether it's a 10 or 12-man league, a standard or PPR league, every person has a common goal, which is to be crowned fantasy football champion and earn bragging rights against your friends until the next season rolls around. Tonight, I am pleased to have fantasy guru Clark Dalton with me as we break down the first half of an already very exciting and surprising fantasy football regular season.
It's great to be on, Zach, and I appreciate the compliment of you calling me a guru. Now let's transition. The centerpiece of every great fantasy team is that one special player. With so many superstars to choose from, who's your fantasy MVP?
Yeah, for me, it's a clear-cut choice for me. It's Christian McCaffrey. I mean, you're talking about fantasy MVP. He can be honestly just the league MVP of the regular NFL. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, if you drafted him top 3, right? He's lived up to all the hype. He's the best pick in the top 3 of Kamara and Saquon, which is the initial top 3. McCaffrey's had 3 games over 130 yards. He's come close to another one to get over 100 yards. And as a PPR weapon, which is a significant piece in for PPR, like points per reception, if you don't know what that means, he's had around 6 to 7 receptions and around plus 60 yards in each of his 5 games. I mean, he's excellent. He's the #1 player in fantasy for a reason. So Christian McCaffrey is my MVP for this season so far.
Absolutely. Christian McCaffrey is so versatile, and it's been really impressive what he's been doing for the Panthers thus far. I'm going to stick with a running back, but I'm going up north to Minneapolis, where Dalvin Cook is shredding through defenses. He's had 110 rushing yards in 4 of 5 games. He had 6.3 yards per carry against the New York Giants this Sunday. And the nice thing about Dalvin is he's versatile. He has a nice set of hands. He has 21 catches this season. And it's not those little 2-yard catches you see normally. It extends the play, 9.5 yards per reception. So that's nearing a first down every time he catches the football. And the nice thing about Minnesota's offense is it's balanced. They throw the ball downfield. So Dalvin will definitely get his touches, but he won't be overworked.
Yeah, I mean, Dalvin Cook's another excellent choice. There's other guys like a Joe Mixon, James Conner that got drafted before him, and I know fantasy owners are really hurting because of that choice. And without Dalvin Cook, Kirk Cousins would be nowhere right now in that team. So Dalvin Cook's an excellent choice also. But, let's move on, and I'm going to go right now. We always have boom and bust, a guy who lives up to the expectations, if not exceeds it, and a guy, necessarily who didn't. For you, Clark, who's your one boom and who's your one bust so far in this fantasy regular season?
Let's start on a positive note. Let's start with the boom. And this guy, he's great already, Russell Wilson. But this year, he's taking it to a whole nother level. He's the epitome of a dual threat quarterback. He has 12 passing touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns. And Wilson does a nice job of making those precision timing throws you look for in a quarterback, but he can also make magic happen when the play breaks down. He's the #1 quarterback overall in ESPN fantasy football. He's averaging 25 fantasy points per game. Now let's move on to the bust. And this guy, he's a little bit like Russell Wilson. He was league MVP in 2015. That's Cam Newton. And Cam is normally a great player, but his shoulder injury, it's hurt him greatly because it's affecting his arm strength, and he can't get the ball as far downfield as he would normally like. And he hasn't played since week 2, and he was only averaging 8.3 fantasy points per game, and he has not thrown a single touchdown all season. Additionally, he's only completing 56% of his passes.
Yeah, I mean, Russell Wilson's an excellent choice. He looks like a real MVP candidate, and he's been the best quarterback in football, in my opinion. And Cam Newton, obviously, injuries have hurt him, but, we'll see how it goes. But in the 2 games, he did struggle. For me, for my boom, it's got to be DJ Chark Jr. We're going to go down to Duval County. I mean, that guy has been excellent, 5 touchdowns in 5 games. He's Gardner Minshew's clear weapon for this team. I mean, I've just been overly impressed with his skill. He goes up and gets the ball. And I mean, he was drafted high. He was a 2nd-round pick 2 years ago, and he's proving why that's a thing. So if you're Jacksonville, who was really trying to figure out who their #1, they thought it might have been Dede. DJ Chark has been that clear option. For the bust side, it's going to be Joe Mixon, not necessarily because of his performance lately, but just due to where he was drafted. He was drafted early 1st round, late 1st round, high 2nd round, and he just hasn't produced. And there's been guys like Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, Marlon Mack, who have produced over him. He's unfortunately not on a great team and a great system, so you're not going to get a lot of production. So if you were thinking Joe Mixon was going to be a #1 back for you this year, it's looking like he's maybe a lower end #2 at this point.
Yeah, and I like that point you bring out because of the boom and bust. What surrounds you is so important. You look at Joe Mixon, Cincinnati's in a rebuilding year. He's struggling a little bit, but when DJ Chark, a prospect who had some nice upside, finally gets the quarterback he needed, he lives up to his potential. In 2019, it's been an interesting year because there are some superstars who haven't played yet, and there are some players who are rising to the forefront and making a name for themselves. Zach, who's the player we will all be talking about at the end of the year?
Yes, that's a great way to put it. I'm going to go with a guy who hasn't really played that much, who I think played only one game due to injury, and that's Tyreek Hill. I mean, Tyreek Hill's been a guy for the past few years who's been one of the best wide receivers in the league, and you've seen it. Patrick Mahomes has struggled in these past few games with some unknown name wide receivers. He's only had one touchdown in 2 games. That is very unlike Mahomes. But the second Hill comes back, he makes Patrick Mahomes a clear-cut MVP candidate that we know him as. And Tyreek Hill is just so explosive. In a PPR league, he's going to really help because he'll get those receptions. And, of course, he'll get some deep ball bonus points for you because he's always burning by the DBs and going in for the touchdown. So I expect Tyreek Hill by the end of this year to put up top 5 fantasy wide receiver numbers.
That's a great pick. He's one of the most dynamic players in this league right now. I'm going with a player who's on the Chiefs' longtime rival, the Oakland Raiders, the rookie running back, Josh Jacobs. And Josh Jacobs was a first-round pick late in the first round. He's living up to that potential. He had 126 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Bears defense. And the Bears defense is one of the best in the NFL. They have guys like Khalil Mack and Eddie Jackson, and he's just a rookie, so he's only going to get better. He's posted 99 yards or more in every game, and he's top 5 in the league in rushing right now. He's the heart and soul of this Raiders offense, and he will keep them fighting for a playoff spot.
Yeah, I know. I mean, Josh Jacobs has been excellent this year. A guy who a lot of people thought as a rookie, you know what he'd do well? He's clearly surpassed those expectations. And if you have him as your second running back right now, as a fantasy over, you must be super happy and super excited for the rest of the season because I only see better and better for Josh Jacobs, and he's already produced great numbers. But for right now, thank you, Clark. You really did live up to that guru status, and I can't wait to see what the rest of the 2019 fantasy season produces.
Thanks, Zach.
Thanks, Clark and Zach. And when we come back, we will catch up with Tom Herman to see what he has to say the week before Texas football takes on OU. Stick around.
Everything that surrounds the game it makes it one of, if not the best games in college football.
Welcome back into College Press Box. Fresh off the 11-point victory in Morgantown last Saturday, it's time for Texas football to now shift their focus to Lincoln Riley and the Oklahoma Sooners. Head coach Tom Herman at his weekly presser this afternoon touched on Saturday's victory and previewed this weekend's Red River Showdown.
Obviously excited to get a big road win. We're fortunate enough to be in that game against Oklahoma that it would diminish maybe the mystique, if you will, of the Red River Showdown, and it hasn't, in my opinion, at all. The 2 states in general don't get along very well, and then to have it at such a historic venue during the Texas State Fair, I think it's cool that it's always on our soil, which is just everything that surrounds the game. It makes it one of, if not the best games in college football.
Many other teams here on campus were also in action this past week, including the 6th-ranked Texas volleyball team. The Horns traveled to Fort Worth on Wednesday as they took on the TCU Horned Frogs. Texas would sweep their Big 12 foe in 3 sets and move to 9-2 overall and 3-0 in conference play. Senior Micaiah White led the way for the Burnt Orange with 13 kills, 4 digs, and 2 aces. And this week, the Horns head to Manhattan, Kansas on Wednesday to face the K-State Wildcats. And just as the football team does, Texas will take on the Oklahoma Sooners on Saturday at Gregory Gym.
Texas ex softball star Kat Osterman is back again on the 18-woman roster, competing for the gold for the U.S. Olympic team in Tokyo 2020. Pitching legend Osterman is a 2-time U.S. Olympic medalist and won gold as the youngest member of the U.S. Olympic softball team in Athens in 2004. Osterman was drafted #1 overall in the 2006 National Pro Fast Pitch Draft and was the NPF's Pitcher of the Year 3 times. This will be Osterman's 3rd time making an appearance at the Olympic Games.
The Texas men's golf team competed in the Nike Golf Collegiate Invitational last week at the Pumpkin Ridge Golf Club in North Plains, Oregon. The 10th-ranked Longhorns finished in 5th place overall with the team's score of 9 under. Senior Spencer Sussman finished the tournament tied for 15th individually with the team best 4 under in his first action of the season. Sophomore Pearson Cootie had the individual highlight of the day as he sunk a hole-in-one on the 15th hole, his first ace in competition. This weekend, Texas has Big 12 match play at the clubs at Houston Oaks in Hockley, Texas.
Now checking out women's tennis, senior Anna Tirati and junior Fernanda Labrania won the doubles championship on Saturday in the ITF 15K Pro Circuit event at the University of Oklahoma Tennis Club. This win is the second career ITF doubles title for both Tirati and Labrania. But that wasn't all for Anna Tirati. On Sunday, the senior won the singles title at the event, making this her fourth ITF 15K Pro Circuit Singles Championship this year. The ITA All-American Championships continues through this upcoming weekend.
The defending national champion Texas men's tennis team is currently competing at the ITA All-American Championships in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The qualifying rounds took place today and continue through tomorrow. Freshman Jacob Bullard won his qualifying match 6-4, 7-6, and sophomore Nevin Aramili advanced as well with the 6-3, 6-1 victory. Then the main draw begins on Wednesday and will feature seniors Yuya Ito and Christian Sigsgaard, both of them playing singles and together in doubles.
This week in Longhorn sports, on Wednesday, volleyball takes on Kansas State at 7 p.m. You can catch that on FSN. On Friday, soccer faces Oklahoma State at 7 p.m. on LHN. And for the day full of rivalry on Saturday, football takes on the Sooners at 11 a.m. on Fox, and volleyball plays OU at 5 p.m., and you can watch that on LHN.
Madison, needless to say, it's a big week for Texas athletics, especially that game Saturday morning at the Cotton Bowl. That's all for this week's edition of College Press Box. Be sure to check out our sister show, College Crossfire, with host Turner Barnes every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock. And from everyone here in the studio, back in Master Control Room, and our incredible director, Christine Taylor, we thank you so much for tuning in to the show tonight. Alongside Madison Hager, I'm Nick Kucholtz. We'll see you next week.